Greetings, folks, and welcome to the Electromaker Show. This is your midweek roundup of all things maker and embedded and lovely. Now, we have a very exciting announcement this show, something I've been waiting to tell you guys about for a while. We are starting a new initiative, you could call it, on Electromaker, called Electromaker of the Month. I'm going to go into more details later in the show, but in short, you can now win prizes just based on your ingenuity. You just show us your projects, and we'll be awarding prizes every month of this year, and probably much longer than that too. It's a really nice idea. Anyway, other than that, there's a new Arduino H7 shield that's been launched. It's a cellular IoT shield, so it's very much of the time. There's that and a lot more stuff to get through in this week's show. So let's get on with it. I wanted to begin the show by talking about the Electromaker of the Month. This is the new thing we're doing on Electromaker, and I'm so excited to actually finally talk about it. From the second I heard about it, I thought it was a wonderful idea. So, as you are probably aware, we have a project section on the Electromaker website. This is where projects from you, the Electromaker community, are posted. Some of them are like tutorials, this is how you do a thing. Some of them are show off, this is how I did this thing, but not necessarily telling you how to do it. They're all equally welcome. In fact, I'm routinely blown away by the quality of not only the projects, but the write-ups of those projects on the website. This is where I take a lot of inspiration from when it comes to what I'm going to talk about on the show. And where possible, I try and feature these projects on the show. Sometimes that isn't possible because the big sort of news project of the week has been published somewhere else. And as you may know as well, if you follow us on social media, a huge amount of the stuff that we're posting on Twitter is projects from you. There's no way that I would have the time to come up with so many wonderful ideas. I barely have the time to create this show. So yes, this is one of my favorite parts of the Electromaker website. And now we have the opportunity to celebrate it. So there is a blog post here that I'm going to link in the description, and inside this blog post is also a short video I recorded explaining how this works. So I'm not going to go into too much detail here, but in short, every month we'll be picking 3 projects to be winners. 2 of those will be runners-up, and they will win some of this lovely stuff here, including this dongle, which is it's a lot of fun, that, and we're going to talk about that again on a future show. And there'll be one overall winner who will win a whole bunch of Nordic cellular IoT, Bluetooth Low Energy goodness. The winner wins everything you see there. And everyone also gets a bunch of cool Electromaker swag. Not pictured here is an Electromaker t-shirt as well. I'm going to leave it at that for now. If you want to participate, head to the link in the description for this to this blog post. But essentially, under the community tab, if you click Upload Project, if you are already logged in, you will be taken to the new project page. If you are not, you'll be prompted to log in or create an account. And in case you didn't know, creating an account on Electromaker is absolutely free. Once you have an account, you will have a place where you can put all of your projects. Like I've said many times before, the project section of the Electromaker site is by far my favorite thing. It is incredibly inspiring, and it's lovely to see what everyone is up to. And now, yes, 3 people each month will win things just for being creative. It's the best kind of competition I could imagine. Anyway, you'll be hearing a lot more about Electromaker of the Month because the winning projects will be featured on the show. But if you do decide to take part, we'll be announcing it on social media as well. So make sure you're following us on Twitter or Facebook or any one of those things. But for now, let's just leave it at that. The Electromaker of the Month is here. It's a way of us saying thank you to you for your creativity, and I couldn't be happier that we are doing it. Anyway, let's get on with the rest of the show. We are starting with a blog post from NotEnoughTech, and if you're familiar with that name, it's because they show up in the comments of our videos quite a lot. Matt watches our show, and we are massive fans of his channel too. In fact, if you're not already subscribed to the NotEnoughTech YouTube channel, head over there. He gets to do a lot more actual hands-on doing stuff with tech, the kind of stuff that I wish I had the time to do, rather than just talk about it on a weekly basis. His channel is an absolute treasure trove of various things, some of which are well-known and mainstream, some of which are a little bit less known. But the blog post in question is specifically about the Tonga volcano and what it did to his temperature and humidity sensor. So, Tonga volcano killed my Akara sensor is not bad for a clickbait title. And I'm not giving him a discredit by saying that. It's literally the first sentence of the article. As far as clickbait titles go, this one is pretty awesome. It's not entirely misleading, and that is the truth. So, before we go any further, a couple of quick things. I mean, the Akara, or Aquara, if you pronounce it that way, these sensors are temperature and humidity sensors. They're very cheap. They have long battery lives, and they work with Zigbee. And the volcano eruption in question, let's not forget the fact that it was a volcanic eruption with deadly consequences. I'm not trying to belittle the fact that something so terrible happened as a natural disaster. The interesting stuff from this show's perspective, however, is what happened around the world with various different devices which had pressure sensors attached to them. You may have seen reported, I think on the Raspberry Pi blog even, that someone had a sensor attached to their Raspberry Pi, and that they were able to measure the pressure wave, and by various different people around the world that had pressure sensors attached to things, you could see how fast the pressure wave was traveling, which is kind of fascinating. In this case, however, it was slightly more interesting in that it killed Matt's sensor. In fact, you can see here the exact moment when it happened. You can see here is the pressure dropping, and then there's this massive thing here, and then afterwards just a flat line. And in fact, there's another photo that shows it in much, much more detail. So yes, the Tonga volcano did sort of knock this pressure and humidity sensor out. If you want to know the reason Matt thinks that it happened, I'll leave a link to this blog post in the description of the video. And of course, as I previously mentioned, if you're not already subscribed to NotEnoughTech on YouTube, head over and give Matt a subscription. Now, you may remember us talking about Phil's Lab on the show before. If you're not familiar, Phil's Lab is a channel which is an absolute resource for circuit design and working with things like STM32 and going from basically zero knowledge to getting your own PCBs printed. There's already a huge amount of free information on his channel, but he did mention that he was going to put together a bespoke course which was from start to finish creating a mixed signal hardware design. And really from start to finish, part selection, creating the PCB layout, going from an idea right up to the point where if you wanted to, you could get it manufactured. That course has now been created and is now live. Now, this is Phil's video on the subject, and where he will be explaining it far better than I could, so I won't be going into any more detail there. But you can go to this video and head to the description here, because this is where it shows you his website, the Phil's Lab website, which goes into the detail of the course content. And the other link you can find there is the link to the actual course itself. And so you can, as you say, it starts from $99. There's two versions of it. I think the side that I am signing up for is slightly more than that, and I can't remember why. But you can head there yourself and read everything about it. I haven't taken the course. And I'm just going on from what I've read, but I haven't really come across anything which is this comprehensive thus far. So it really does look quite interesting. If you are interested in creating your own hardware from scratch, you know, from idea through to part selection to laying out the PCB to actually getting it printed and putting it together and having it work, I haven't come across anything quite like this, at least not at this price. Anyhow, if you would like to know more about the Phil's Lab course, you can watch his video, and everything you need to know is in the description of that video. Now, you may remember on last week's show, we featured a Raspberry Pi MIDI router, which is inside a nice case chock full of beautiful synths. And a familiar face showed up in the Discord to show that a project that they've been working on is not dissimilar. Yes, we featured the DIY Electro Music blog post on this show before, and Kevin's made some wonderful things. If you remember, we featured the Lo-Fi Guide to the Orchestra, which is an orchestra made of Arduinos. And one of the things that was played through it was the Planet Suite, which is especially good for me because my son's favorite piece of music is Jupiter by Holst from the Planet Suite. Now, this is a multi-router. As it says here, it's combined the Pi Pico MIDI channel merger and the Raspberry Pi Pico MIDI channel router to create a more general 6-in, 6-out MIDI routing device. Now, here's where it gets interesting. There's two hardware UARTs on the Pi Pico, and that's it. So where do you get the 6 channels from? Well, you have the programmable input-output pins on the Pi Pico, those general-purpose state machine pins that can be trained to do pretty much anything. Told to do pretty much anything. You don't train them like a pet. And so there we go. They've created 4 PIO UARTs to give 6 in and 6 outs. There's a video you can see playing here without the sound. I suggest you go and watch it with the sound. It'll give you a very good idea of what is going on. And as always, the page gives a full explanation of what is going on with the circuit and how to achieve it yourself. Also, the previous reading is definitely worth reading. So this is the channel router and channel merger I was talking about. If you are just getting started with microcontrollers in general, and you've maybe just got an Arduino Uno or something, the getting started pages here are one of the best resources for generally getting started with microcontrollers with an ear towards playing music that I've ever come across. There's just a few general things here. There's caution, and you definitely should read this. This is all very important. But however, there's just a great list here of different lessons, and there's a kit list. And then why would you want to do Arduino music? Then there's these books. I, in fact, own this book, and I haven't read it yet. I feel dreadful. It's sitting in the corner of my room. Yeah, this is just a fantastic resource. So I will leave a link to this original post in the description so you can go and look at it yourself. And the Simple DIY Electronics Music or the DIY Electro Music blog is generally a fantastic place to go if you are interested in where microcontrollers and music intersect, as I am. Yeah, thank you for pointing this one out in the Discord, Kevin. Those of you who are not already in the Discord, by the way, I found out about this through the Discord. I hadn't actually noticed this blog, which went out in December. He posted it there, brought it to my attention, and now we're featuring it on the show. So if you do see something on the show and it inspires you or reminds you of something else, do head over to the Discord channel and let me know. Maybe I'll feature it in the following week's show. If you are enjoying the Electromaker Show, there are a number of things you can do on YouTube in order to support us. So underneath each video, you will notice that there is a like button. And if you click this button, it's, well, a good way of showing both us and YouTube that you like the video. It also means they're far more likely to show it to other people who they think might like the video as well. If you click subscribe, you will be subscribed to our channel, unsurprisingly. And this means that in the subscriptions panel on the left-hand side, if you click that, you will only be shown channels that you have subscribed to, and so our videos will show up there. However, if you, like me, have many hundreds of subscriptions and find it difficult to find the thing that you want, you can also click the little bell here and select all. This will turn on notifications inside YouTube. So if you look up in the top corner here, I have one notification. And when I click this, you'll see this is the show. Because I use this channel to give the example, I already had the notification there waiting from the last time that I did this. Note that this is a notification within your browser when you go to YouTube. You will not get desktop notifications unless you specifically allow them, and I would not do that with a website, really. It's not something that I recommend. But yes, this is free. These three things, like, subscribing, and clicking the bell. I know every YouTuber asks you to do it, but there's a good reason for it. It means it's far more likely that this show will be seen by more and more people, and after all, I want to share the show with as many people as possible. So there are three things that you can do on YouTube. However, there are other ways that you can support us. One of the ways you can support us, and in fact the best way you can support us, is by using our shop. Electromaker has a shop with a bunch of things from a huge amount of different people. We'll be talking about the Portenta H7 in this show, and here is the full-size Portenta H7 board. A very powerful board indeed. We have this. We're also going to be talking about the Pi Pico. We stock things from Raspberry Pi. And as a general rule, if I talk about something on the show and you want to make it yourself, you could probably find the bits to do it in our shop. And if you get them from us, it's going to be a great help. However, if you're not in a position to support us financially, that's absolutely fine. There's many free ways you can be part of Electromaker as well. Under the community tab, you will notice there is a link to a Discord server, and that Discord server is growing all the time. There are different channels in it for different things. There's one for our ongoing Thingy 91 contest, there's ones for showing off what you are doing, and there are general discussion channels in there too. Also, as I mentioned in this show, we've just started the Electromaker of the Month program, and this same community tab is where you can upload your projects to Electromaker. Being a member of the Electromaker website is absolutely free. You create your account over here under Join Us, and once you have, you can upload your projects to the site, and as I've already mentioned, you can now win every month by doing so. And this is also where you can browse the many, many projects that people have put on our site as well. You're under no obligation to spend money in the Electromaker store. I only mention it every time because it is the best way to support us. It's what we have as opposed to a thing like a Patreon or relying on adverts or anything like that. And hopefully, the shop alone will be enough to continue doing it that way and not have to get other things involved. But there's absolutely no obligation to support us financially, of course. We're just very, very happy that the Electromaker community continues to grow and that so many of you are enjoying the show. Now, speaking of which, thank you for being so patient in this short advertising break, albeit an advert for ourselves, which is very self-referential, but let's get on with the rest of the show. We're moving over to the part of the show we called Funding Website Things, where we look at things on funding websites, and we're beginning, as we so often do, on CrowdSupply. So, PiEEG, this is an open source Raspberry Pi shield, or hat, that measures EEG, EMG, and ECG biosignals. Now, biosensing with microcontrollers in general is getting more popular, and that's just because the barrier of entry is getting lower with products like PiEEG. You have something to go between the electrodes and the microcontroller, or in this case, the single-board computer, that usually comes with its own software as well. It makes it a lot easier to actually turn biosignals into something usable. So in this case, it's saying applications include gaming, entertainment, sports, health, meditation, which is quite interesting, and more. And it measures the biosignals used in... Oh, here we go. Electroencephalography, electromyography, and electrocardiography, EEG, EMG, and ECG. Now, I'm not going to pretend for 1 second to know exactly what each one of those things is, but I do know that each one of them are things that are measured in terms of your general well-being. So having done a little bit of respect, in short, it's heart, muscles, and brain. That's what it's measuring. Muscle response to movement, brain in general, heart in general, as far as I can tell. It uses an open source software to process biosignals in real time. The GitHub repo provides open source models that will help you do things like control robots using the EEG signals generated by your mind. That's very cool. So there is a video demo here. There's also a few features and specifications, as well as the pinout as well. This is, as I mentioned, a pre-launch project. So we will come back to this one when it goes live to see how much it costs. The entire field of biosensing is something I'm very interested in and haven't really done anything with so far. So when we come back to this, maybe we can talk about it a little bit more. If there is anyone in the comments who is working on something like this, I would be very interested to hear exactly what you're working on and the kind of resources you were looking into in order to learn more about it, because it is a corner of the makerverse, as it were, that I'm still very unfamiliar with. We're moving over to Kickstarter, which is a place we haven't been in a while, and this is the StackyPi. Now, this is a kind of exciting little project. On the surface, you're seeing this and you're probably thinking, well, okay, it's an RP2040 microcontroller, but it's in the Raspberry Pi Zero form factor. That's a cute idea, and okay, there's an SD card slot. That's a nice addition. It's a bit more than that, though. The thing about it that is kind of awesome and that I hadn't really thought of the implications of is that it can take Raspberry Pi hats. So these two GIFs say what just took me several seconds to say in less than a second. There's the micro SD card slot, and as you can see here, that's taking a regular Raspberry Pi hat, which has a round LCD screen on, and putting it on the Pico Zero, I believe is what they're calling it. Yes. It's just such a wonderful idea. And in my head, I was kind of thinking, are there other MCU boards that do this? I'm sure there are, but I can't think of one off the top of my head. The only one that's coming to me is the hat for the Raspberry Pi, which allows you to use Arduino Uno shields with it, which may do some level shifting as well. I can't quite remember. But I'm not going to spend too much time on it, because there's not that much more to say. It's a RP2040 board in the shape of a Pi Zero, really interesting. And it has some extra flash memory on board. As you can see, there's 64 megabytes of flash memory there. And it is only £10. The Kickstarter special price is only £10, and however much that is in your local currency, it'll be however much euros for me, which is astounding, really. I find that kind of amazing. So I will leave a link to this in the description. You can come and read the project page, and if you want to pledge and support it, yes, just £10, very cheap. So, on last week's show, I announced I'd be giving away this. This is the M5 Tough. It is an ESP32-based module from M5. And like most M5 things, it's incredibly easy to use, has a bunch of great features straight out of the box, but the difference with this one is it's tough. You know, it's in a tough enclosure, hence the name M5 Tough. Now, in the little time I had to play with the M5 Tough, I had a lot of fun with it. I really didn't do much other than just mess around with the demos that came with it. But if you ever used anything from M5 Stack before, you will know that they are designed to be relatively easy to use. They're all Arduino compatible. And yeah, it's ESP32 in there. They're powerful as well. You can do a huge amount with them. The thing that sets them aside from a lot of other development boards is that they're always really nicely packaged. They've really gone into some deeper thought with the product design, and the M5 Tough is no different. But it's an ESP32 development kit, and M5 Stack is nice in that they have sort of 3 levels of how you can program them. There's the ESP IDF, which is the lowest level thing. This is the from Espressif. That's their development kit for working with the ESP32 and the ESP8266. That's their SDK. And it is, of course, Arduino IDE compatible as well. That's what I've fiddled with. They have a robust Arduino library, and of course, any ESP32 library really will work. We just have to think about pin mappings a bit. They also have UI Flow, something I'm not all that familiar with, but as far as I understand, that is a no-code visual programming language, which is by far the easiest way to program an ESP32 I've ever come across. Anyway, I just wanted to quickly talk about it a bit here, because M5 just sent us this specifically to give away. That's the only reason that this came across my desk. It was very nice of them to do so thank you, M5. M5 Stack. And if you are interested in this or any other M5 Stack products, you can head to their online store, which is just, if you just search for M5 Stack, it's like the first thing that comes up. However, enough waffling. We have an M5 Tough to give away, but we need to give it away to a prize winner, which we're going to pick now. And the winner of the M5 Tough is Stefan Liebenberg, who commented on last week's video saying, "When you see your comment on the screen for the winner's announcement, only to have it blurred out seconds later, disappointment was real." Well, that's not the reason why you've won this competition. However, the disappointment is not real this week because you are the winner. But no, the reason your comment was picked is simply, as you say, you've ordered your first Arduino starter kit, you've played around with the Raspberry Pis, and you love them. Also working on your first Raspberry Pi Pico based robot. It's all built now just to do the code. That sounds super cool, super interesting, and it grabbed our attention, and that is why you are the winner of this week's competition. Also, with that project and any other project that you're working on, feel free to put it on the Electromaker website. It's free to get an account, and we have a projects page specifically for documenting your projects that work, your projects that don't, and of course, everyone that puts projects on the Electromaker website now could win a prize each month too. But for now, congratulations, Stefan. We'll be in touch with you as to how we can get the M5 Tough out to you in the post. And yeah, that's it for this week's competition. We have no new competition announcement this week. Next week, we can finally get back to the good old mystery box competition. I have a whole mystery box down there still of stuff provided by the wonderful people from Mauser, and I'll be putting my hand in it to see what we'll be taking out, what will come out of the mystery box next week. This section's gone on way longer than it was meant to. Let's get on with the rest of the show. We're going to close out this week's show talking about a couple of Arduino things. There is a new Arduino shield for the Portenta H7, which is a cellular IoT shield. It's very exciting. But before we go there, Arduino has released, as they do every year, their open source report. So right off the bat, I will link the open source report in the description. I suggest you go and read it for yourselves. There's too much here for me to cover. I'm just going to talk about a couple of very choice cuts. One thing which is just a general thing that goes throughout the entire report, basically, is once you get into the actual report itself. So, for example, they're talking about the Arduino... Arduino IDE 2.0. How it says what's happened. Okay, they've rewrote the Arduino IDE from scratch, and they've released it. They've released the 12 beta versions, and they're the first release candidate for stable. Then how you can get involved. Test the IDE, contribute for the translation, join the development because it's all open source, and help testing bugs, fixing them, and developing new features. There is a way to get involved with every step of this report. It's really quite interesting. Arduino Lint is something we never even talked about on the show. This is super interesting. It's a command line tool that you can run. You can write code in Vim or whatever you want, then run the linter through it, and it will tell you that it's compliant with their Arduino linting guidelines. It's super interesting. And yes, this runs all the way through. One other thing that I just thought was really cool and interesting is that Arduino continues to have a super cool attitude towards the way that their boards are seen and reproduced throughout the world. So let's make it very clear. When we talk about clone Arduino boards, we're talking about boards which use the Arduino form factor. They maybe use the same parts as Arduino, but they have different names for them. If you have a starter kit for Arduino, it may not be from Arduino. It'll have a different name printed on it. And that's actually absolutely fine because Arduino is an open source company, hardware and software. What they're against is people using the Arduino name to make crappy products that are going to fall apart and stop working after a week. Nobody wants that. That doesn't do anyone any good. But they specifically say, if you want, here are their new open hardware boards. There's the RP 2040 Nano Connect, which is an awesome board. I haven't had enough time to play with yet. I've got one over there on the shelf. And of course, the beautiful little Arduino Uno Mini, which you talked about last week. How to get involved. Remix these boards, innovate, and share your builds. They specifically want you to take what they've done and run with it. Just a really lovely idea. Anyway, there's much more in here. I will leave a link to this PDF in the description. And this is a really, really good read. It always is. The Arduino reports are always really good to read. But this one especially, for some reason, gave me a very warm and fuzzy feeling inside and a great feeling of appreciation for what the Arduino team have been doing for all of these years. We are closing out this week's show with a bit of news. In fact, we now report the news on Electromaker. I guess that's newsworthy in itself. We have a new section called the Electro Wire, which is news stories. And daily we will be reporting on various things to do with the embedded and maker world, new products, general news, notable things, newsworthy projects, things like that. And one of the things we reported on at the very start of this week is that Arduino has just released their latest shield for the Portenta H7. Now, this shield is the Cat M1 NB-IoT GNSS shield. A snappier way of putting it would be this is a cellular IoT shield for the Portenta H7. Cat M1 is the same as LTE-M, and if you aren't familiar with LTE-M and NB-IoT, that is the cellular part of it. It's the same kind of thing that you have in your phone. You require a SIM card in order to talk to satellites and get connectivity wherever you are. And GNSS is a global positioning. It's a GPS. And this new shield will allow you to develop for both. I will link our news post in the description of this video, and from there you can read what I've written about it, or you can head over to the Arduino blog in order to read the slightly longer version that they've written. There's a video in it as well, which is very good. If you're thinking of buying a Portenta H7, you could always buy that from the Electromaker store. That would help the show out quite a bit. There is also, however, a link to the Arduino Pro store here, where you can buy the shield. If you want to get that immediately as well, you could get them both at the same time either way. Now, there is a webinar that Arduino is running with Thales. They're the people behind the hardware on the shield. And you can sign up for that using the online form just here. Now, in my article, I've noticed it says February 22nd, 2022. And here it actually says February 23rd. I don't know if I got it wrong or they changed the date. Either way, I'm going to change that soon. But the link is correct. And on the 23rd of February, there is a webinar at 9 a.m. and at 5 p.m. So you can choose the time that suits you. So yes, there is a new shield for the Portenta H7. It's a very, very exciting board, the Portenta H7, and one that, I'm really excited to see what gets done with it, because it's by far the most pro board from Arduino, which makes sense. It's in the Arduino Pro line. I just don't know anyone that's working hands-on with them right now. In fact, if you are and you're watching this video, let me know in the comment section what you're doing with the Portenta H7, because out of all of the Arduino boards, it's the one that's the most sort of interesting and mysterious to me. So that is our show for the week. Thank you so much for joining me. And as always, thank you for all the support you are showing the Electromaker Show on social media, on YouTube, by buying stuff in the shop. Every little bit counts. And it's the main reason why this show is not only keeping going, but we're able to do new things with it and, improve and have slightly nicer looking things. And I just hit my microphone. So yes, I'll be back next week with a brand new show. And don't forget to enter the Electromaker of the Month this month and every month going forward. Very exciting. But for now, I hope you have a safe, fun, and creative week, and I will chat to you next time.